There are actually three modules and 3 OB chapters that apply to motivation. They're called out explicitly on the syllabus. Module 8 for this week deals with need theories, and we're going to see what those are. And it's possible that you have seen these before in a basic psychology class, because there's a couple of the need theories that are extremely popular and well-known and typically introduced at an introductory level. The E-exercise you have in your hand now is this one, Motivation, Your Profile of Needs. The BizFlix film scene comes from the film For Love of the Game, a baseball film. That's kind of cool, and there's a short section in there that we've extracted. The film scenes that I'll use here in class, time permitting, come from Toy Story and The Odd Couple. And you may, when I showed you ants on the first day, I told you, don't think I'm bonkers because I'm showing animated film. It's a specialty of mine, and I happen to admire much of the old and new animation. And you may remember the film Toy Story, but the one that I will likely start with, since I want to experiment with reversing the order of these two films, is The Odd Couple. And that's the late Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau film, where they are interesting people, different personalities, and what I'll want you to do is apply the needs concepts in this module to that film scene, and we'll do it in a couple of different steps. And then we'll go to Toy Story. The need theories are several, and possibly we will not discuss every one of them in here, but they are covered in Chapter 7. Murray's theory is one of the most basic descriptions of personality needs or human needs and how they motivate behavior. He was a Harvard psychologist, and he did an enormous amount of work identifying hundreds of needs that drive people's behavior. The E-exercise you have is an extract from his work of some of the needs in the inventory, so to speak, that he created. The next one is from Abraham Maslow, and I have the name of the person associated with the theory in the heading within the chapter, because it is so well known as to who created these ideas. And likely you saw something to do with Maslow in your introductory psychology course, because it's typically covered at an introductory level. An advancement on Maslow's work comes from what is called ERG theory. The letters stand for existence, relatedness, and growth. We'll see the details of that in a little while, so don't worry about understanding it completely at this point. Fourth one, comes from David McClelland's work on achievement motivation. And his research on the need for achievement was groundbreaking, and it spanned the world the way he was able to do it. And there are also two other parts to his work that we will look at briefly. The last one comes from Frederick Hertzberg, and is called the motivator hygiene theory. I probably will not spend any time in here on it, because there's some serious questions about the validity of the research that went behind building it, but it's so well anchored in the literature, and professors seem to always want to talk about it, that I had to include it in this basic motivation chapter. But you can read the short section. I guarantee you there will not be an endless list of questions on the second examination from Hertzberg. Then, next week, we go to Module 9, and here we have what are called the cognitive and behavioral theories and techniques. And in this area, we're going to take a look at some fairly well-established and well-developed sets of ideas that I'm going to ask us to use in an analytical way. Analytically with film scenes, and analytically on ourselves with the E-exercise associated with the chapter, or with the module. And that E-exercise is the motivation and performance scenarios that I have developed and asking you to react to them and assess the motivation level of the people described. The Bisflick film scene is from the film Seabiscuit about the racehorse. And it's an excellent sequence. I may choose to bring the entire segment in that runs a little bit longer and is a bit more complete than what we licensed. But if you know anything in the history of racing, Seabiscuit was a famous racehorse. And he, in fact, I remembered him as a young kid. He was racing in the East, and I was living in Massachusetts at the time. I'd hear about Seabiscuit. Of course, it didn't mean a whole lot to me then, until much later when I happened to come across this film. The other film scenes that we'll see in class come from two films, Dangerous Minds and Mr. Holland's Opus, both of which as films are excellent, and the sequences I've selected I think are really solid. So within the cognitive and behavioral theories, it's got several pieces. And you're going to learn to love this stuff, by the way. These are solid ideas that I'm going to pitch on you so that you can understand your motivational framework. And this sequence that we have for the next 3 weeks, this week and the next 2, is highly personal. You can turn it on yourself to take a look introspectively about what motivates you. You may say, I already know what motivates me, and I'm going to tell you straight away that probably you don't know all parts of it, and that's what I seek to help out with. And also for those of you now in a management role or in the future in a management role, these items become highly important in trying to motivate a workforce of how are you going to get folks to do the kinds of things you want to do. Then, therefore, in Chapter 8, OB Chapter 8, there's 4 major theories: expectancy theory, equity theory, goal-setting theory, and behavior modification. Likely you have seen behavior modification before. This is positive reinforcement, operant conditioning, and all that old stuff, and it works quite well. And I likely will ask you, in fact, I'll ask you now, have any of you trained an animal of any type? A what? A dog, a cat, a horse, a canary, parakeet. Just as I just want to see what you've done. What kind of animal?
I've trained dogs. I recently had to retrain my cat.
Retrain your cat?
Yeah, because she got like a bladder infection, and she started attributing it with the litter box. So I had to retrain her to use the...
Oh, to retrain her to use the litter box. Are you successful?
Yeah.
Okay, I would ask you next week, if you don't mind, give us examples. Up here, whoever. Yes?
I trained my dog like 8 years ago. He's 8 now. He's a Labrador Chow mix, and I just got a puppy like 2.5 weeks ago. So I'm training him now, and he's doing good at potty training.
Well, that's where you start. If you have the dog in the house, and you teach it to not use the house as the backyard and let them go out. Others up here? Yes? Training it to go out to the yard?
I like to do tricks.
Oh, do tricks.
She was about 8 when I tried to teach her to roll over, and she'll like roll onto her side, but that's about it.
And she won't go any further.
No.
Okay, right here.
Yeah, I train my dog to do tricks and all kinds of stuff.
Wow, interesting. Everybody's training a dog except for the cat. What do you have to suggest for training up on the back row?
Same. I just trained. I have 2 dogs, and so I went through the whole potty training with both of them. And my little dog, she's a miniature dachshund. She's not on the tricks part. She seems to not get it like at all. She just, I don't know. But my other one, I trained him like just basic like sit, shake, stuff like that.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay. Very interesting. You might, on Mother's Day of this year, whatever that date is, we have the Rio Grande Kennel Club show at the fairgrounds, and you could, if you wanted to, you could go watch the obedience and rally competition. And the rally competition is really stunning to see what those dogs have been taught to do. And they are, and the advanced dogs are not on leash, so you can't correct it. You're totally at the mercy of your training for the dog to behave the way it does. As you know, we have dogs, and the one that is proving to be the biggest challenge now is the Tibetan Mastiff. And he's really bullheaded. So I'll use some examples, and when we get down to that section, you'll see there's a variety of reactions that you have. Yes?
Is the Tibetan Mastiff, is that like related to like a bull mastiff or
No.
something?
No, it's unrelated to any of the Mastiff breeds. It's,
Okay, because that's the kind of puppy I got, and he's kind of stubborn.
well, those Mastiffs are stubborn.
Yeah.
This one is not a Mastiff and is stubborn.
Oh, okay.
It's a big furry thing. It looks like a lion, the males. Okay. Well, over the years, the students have given me wonderful examples, such as a Marine training his parakeet to sing the Marine hymn, or anthem, whatever it's called. And I asked, Reverend, really, did you do that? And he swore he did train two parakeets. One died, and he replaced it, trained it. And it's quite remarkable. And also, the stuff in this chapter, Chapter 8, Module 9, has, for example, expectancy theory and equity theory have extremely strong ties to what managers can do in organizations to motivate people's behavior. And if you are working now or in the past, I would like you to reflect on those experiences, and we can talk about them. Goal setting and behavior modification apply primarily and heavily in the training area of teaching a new employee something new to learn and trying to redirect and guide behavior. Then you will discover when you get to that point that the discussion in motivation, especially in OB Chapter 8, will distinguish between extrinsic or external rewards that motivate people versus intrinsic or internal rewards that motivate people. And the intrinsic part is here in Module 10, where it takes a look at intrinsic rewards and the design of jobs. And this one has a batch of observations in a theory context, that is a specific model, about how the design of our jobs can motivate us or not. And in the in some of the discussions in the essays, people have focused on the comparison between what they're writing about and the jobs that they have versus the kinds of observations that we're going to make when we get to this point. All right, so let me go. And let's talk about the need theories. You can go full screen on me, Aaron. And I'm going to stand out here just to vary what I do and make my back has been bothering me, so it's a little bit easier sometimes to stand. This will make the image for the remote sites a little dark, but they can still see and hear us just fine. Now, if we take a look at page, I'm going to give you the page numbers. You don't have to turn to it if you don't have your book, but I'll just give you the page numbers of what I'm looking at. Everything I've talked about up to this point is on page 150, with a little bit more detail to flesh it out. Then we get to Murray's theory of human personality. We're going back now at least 100 years to when he started his research as a fairly young person on the faculty at Harvard University. And he makes an observation which I have chosen to quote, which I think is a nice way of putting what he was trying to say. What we're after is the connection between a person's behavior and the environment in which they behave. And we behave according to stuff that happens to us. And as a result of what comes our way, we will go in a specific direction. So in the italic portion of the quotation on page 151, Murray says, between what